Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, July 2nd, 2012. Welcome to City Hall. We have a Boy Scout, Jared Dunn, who's going to be leading us in the pledge today. Jared is from Emmanuel Lutheran Troop 82, and today he is working for his Eagle Merit Badge. So, Jared, if you could please step up to the front here, lead us in the pledge. If you could all please rise.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jared. Good luck with your merit badge. And continued success to Troop 82 over Emmanuel Lutheran Church there. To make this meeting official, I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll.
Pezek.
Here.
Gutenkopf.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Polumsky.
Here.
York.
Here.
Hipskin.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
14 present, 0 absent.
14 present, 0 absent. We have a quorum, and we will move on to item number 2, which is receipt of written communications and petitions from the public. At this time, is there anyone with any written communications and/or petitions from the public? Please rise at this time and present those to Clerk Spencer, who is up here to my right. Anybody? Okay, we'll move on to public forum, and at this time, number 3 on the agenda was the comment update. As we could all understand with the significance of what recently happened, that is going to be postponed, and they are, rather than here, out in the field, making sure that we get power up for all of our residents and our businesses. So we will move on to item 4, which is public forum. Clerk Spencer, if you have anybody signed up for public forum, could you please indicate that now?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Terry Pasticat, 182 North York.
And actually, Ms. Pastica, you have 3 minutes, and it's always good to hear from you.
Great. Thank you very much for letting me talk. Tonight I'm going to make a couple of comments about the TIF 4 discussion that happened at the JRB meeting and the presentation that I watched from the city administrator, Mike Kopp, at the last city council meeting. I had a chance to watch it online, and also our office went to the presentations that the city made at the school board and the park board in the last week or so. My first comment is that last council meeting, Alderman Mulliner asked for an overview generally of TIF to provide Mulliner hasn't been around for a long time. Sorry. An overview of TIF to give people an idea of what it is and what you're trying to do. And it was a nice overview, except it wasn't entirely accurate from my perspective with talking about the funding of the TIF. Mr. Kopp stated that only those who are in the TIF pay for the TIF, and that TIF is basically a way to stop the subsidy of the rest of the city for an economically depressed area. From our perspective, that's not entirely accurate, because when a TIF is implemented, it changes the tax rate calculation for everybody in the municipality. So when you implement a TIF, it changes the tax rate calculation, and it equals a tax rate increase. So not everybody who are only in the TIF pay for the TIF. Everybody in the Elmhurst is going to end up paying because of how the tax rates are calculated and an increase in tax rate. Number 2 is related to the actual TIF 4 map and the inclusion of the properties south of North Avenue. I do not understand how CVS and Panera can be considered blighted properties. They're thriving. I've heard some folks talk about how Hahn Street should be included because you just never know what's going to happen with that parcel of property. Someone can want everything from the south side of that property all the way up to North Avenue for a big development. With all due respect, that's not the purpose of a TIF. If those properties are moved into TIF 4 and TIF 4 goes 23 years plus a 12-year extension like has done here in downtown, that property is going to be in a TIF for 72 years. 72 years. That is not the purpose of TIF. TIF is supposed to be a last resort option to promote development in an area where developers would never ever come in. I do not believe that is an appropriate use of those properties inside the TIF. Number 3, from sitting in the school board and the park board meetings, it was obvious that the school district and the park district, it's their perception that this is coming to them at the 11th hour. While the city may have been talking about this project for a long time, TIF 4, it is abundantly clear that those taxing bodies have not had an ample amount of opportunity to take a look at the information that's being presented.
Ms. Pastica, you're running close to your time. Could you
Thank
wrap it up
you,
in about
and
10
negotiate with the
seconds?
City Council about what's happening. I would ask that the City Council proactively halt their timeline because the perception is that you're not playing nice in the sandbox, and it's sending a really bad message. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pastica.
Tamara Brenner, 137 North Caroline.
Tamara Brenner, 137 North Caroline Avenue. So with the storm yesterday, I learned what a great invention whole house generators are. Mine is still running as of the time I left for City Council tonight. I was also reminded on account of the storm that it's really important not to put off for tomorrow what you can do today, because you never know when you're going to have to be cleaning up a bunch of sticks from your front yard, if not bigger branches than that. Which brings me to the Finance Committee meeting from last week. I was appreciative to hear that all four of the aldermen in the Finance Committee realized that a referendum needs to go forward regarding the concept of dual duty and whether Elmhurst city officials should hold more than one public office at a time, elected public office at a time. And I was a little disappointed that better use wasn't made of the committee time last week. I feel that people have known for longer than the committee meeting last week that a referendum was going to be necessary. That was listed in the attorney's report that was available to the committee for several days, and it's unfortunate that no language was discussed at the committee meeting last week. The time is short for this matter. It is possible for the citizens to have an impact on this process, and in fact, because not much progress was made last week at the Finance Committee, the citizens have started a petition effort, and we do have several hundred petitions already signed, and we'll continue with that effort until such time as it's evident the City Council is going to step forward. If they don't, then the citizens will step forward. The deadline for the citizen petition is August 6th. The deadline for the city is August 20th. The citizens have to move before the city deadline comes, and that's what we're going to be doing. It'd be nice if the city caught up with us. Thanks.
Thank you.
And last, we have Tony Menensis, 757 South Parkside.
I got this whole thing written, but I'm going to put it down because the first thing I want to congratulate Tamara Brenner, who's got to be the smartest person in the room, because everything that she said about Article 7 of the Illinois Constitution throughout this process was vindicated by the attorney that submitted the report to the Finance Committee. And it was Tamara that sent the opposition to dual elected duty in this effort, and I don't know about you, but vindication feels pretty good. Now, this belongs on the ballot in November. It was brought to this town, and let me be clear on this. This is not about Mayor DeCiani. He was simply the catalyst that brought it to Elmhurst. After that, it is no longer about him. Laws were tried to be changed, right? And the 1995 statute is bunk, and that's why it was written for one man. This belongs on the November ballot, and all we are asking is for an up or down vote, and it should not be blocked. The obligation of the Finance Committee is to simply pass this to the voters. And in the face of that opinion, that there could now be debate over November or April, we can't write a paragraph before August 20th, a paragraph? Tamara did. One paragraph. All we're asking for is a vote, and you know what I'll accept? If we lose. If this side loses and Elmhurst decides it's a free-for-all, everybody can run for anything they want, there's no restrictions. I dare you. I think it goes down 2-1. And any effort to stop that is a delay tactic, and it's disingenuous, and it lacks leadership. Now, the DuPage County Board is leading. They're putting this to the people. That's their responsibility, and I think it's genuine. And I think it's to send a message to Springfield of how dare you mess with our liberties like that. One person, one vote. One person, one office. That's it. You know, I have this saying, and I am going to say it. The opposition to dual elected duty is on the easy side of stupid. It is that ridiculous. And now Elmhurst has a chance to lead. Send it to the voters. It will pass 2-1, this ordinance. And everybody knows it. So, to delay this till April for the political consideration of one person is unethical. Now, we're walking around in 95-degree heat collecting petitions because we have lost confidence in the Finance Committee, and luckily the United States Constitution says we have the right to petition our government, and we are in the process of doing so. We will lead, and you can follow, or you can join us. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public forum.
Thank you, Clerk Spencer. I will now move on to our consent agenda. And I would, announcements. Anybody for announcements? Anyone? Okay. And I will now move on to our consent agenda, and I would ask if anyone has a question or may want to vote no on a particular item to please indicate that at this time. Alderman Pezza?
Thank you, Mayor. Item I and item W.
Item I and item W. Okay. Anybody else? Hearing none, I ask for a motion and a second to approve the contents of the consent agenda, less items I and W. Chairman Morley with a motion, Alderman Dunn with a second, and I would ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll.
Morley. Aye. Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Polumsky. Aye. York.
Aye.
Tipskin.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Gutenkopf. Aye. Leader.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays. The contents of the consent agenda passes, less items I and W. Now we'll move on to those items individually. Item I is a recommendation. Clerk Spencer, if you'll please read the recommendation, please.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the city enter into a preliminary due diligence and design agreement as outlined above at the city attorney, and the city attorney be authorized to prepare the agreement, and that the mayor be authorized to sign the agreement to allow for the preliminary due diligence and design services designed to work to go forward. Respectfully submitted, Public Works and Buildings Committee. Signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, Bob Dunn, Vice Chairman, Diane Gutenkopf, and Chris Healy.
And at this time, I entertain a motion and a second to put this item on the floor, please. Chairman Kennedy, with a second from Vice Chairman Dunn. And discussion, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to defer to Alderman Pezza, who pulled this item.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
First, I have a question, and then I just have some comments. I'm wondering, after seeing these numbers, if this particular developer was the only bid we received for these items, or if we went and received any other bids for this work.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Arco Murray is the leader of this project. So what they did is they went out and looked at what has been reasonable and customary on similar projects that they've led, and that's what they gave us here as numbers. These are professional services, so as we remember with the parking deck and with many other projects, those trades and those activities that are not professional services will be bid out as normal. We'll do the same basic thing, but many of these things here are professional services, so they're going off their previous relationships and the skills that these different contractors and services bring to them, and that's how they're selecting people in there for the dollar amounts that correspond to each item.
Okay.
Follow-up?
Thank you, yes. First, I want to thank Vice Chairman Dunn for pulling this 2 weeks ago, because when we first received this report, no detail or information, especially regarding cost, had been provided, and I really appreciate you pulling it back and then being able to receive those details and those costs. You know, that night I looked at this and thought, gosh, you know, we could be approving $2,000 or $20,000, and we didn't know how much we were approving because we had no information. So I appreciate seeing the information. However, when we got the information, I was a little stunned, to say the least, that the number was up to $522,000. I really very disappointed that we were expected to vote on an item that starts at $94,000 and is clear that by the end of the day, even though stage one is $94,000, it could be up to $522,000. Very glad I asked for this information and that it was provided. The actual development agreement that is current and existing calls for a 4-story parking garage. That's what these figures are for. That's what this report is in reference to. But this report references a potential 6-story structure with some additional, we're not sure what. That's where I have a problem with what's on here. You know, let's do first things first. let's decide what we are actually dealing with. Let's get our attorneys to settle up and agree on a development plan with our approval. Let's get that in place. Then we can proceed with this piece. And until that's in place, I'm sorry, I cannot support this, and I think the taxpayers deserve to know what it is they're actually going to be paying for and what it is we're going to be building and what we might be dealing with. I don't care to approve spending their money until we give them the courtesy of knowing exactly what it is we're doing. So I do not support this report.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Dunn?
Just a response to what Alderman Pezza had mentioned. The 94,000 at this point is an estimate based on billable hours. The contractor will bill us for actual costs. This is a not to exceed cost, and the two line items that is a portion of either the 4-story option at $459 or the 6-story at $522,000. Those are also estimates at this point. The 94,000, the scope of work on that, to kick that off now allows us, that particular scope of work needs to be done regardless of what the configuration of the building is. And it was felt by the committee that to kick that off as soon as the building is torn down gives us the opportunity to make a lot of progress before the weather changes late in the year. So this topic has been reviewed twice, and the committee felt strongly that at this point that general scope of work is going to be applicable to any configuration of building that goes on. So at this time, it's prudent to get started with it.
Alderman Gutenkopf with a follow-up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate Alderman Pez's concerns, because this does, on the surface, feel like there's already discussion of what's going to happen on this piece of property. In fact, that's not really what we're doing here. What we're doing is trying to assess the council's willingness to go forward with preliminary topographical surveys, geological work that's going to have to happen because there is going to be a building project on this site. And if this project's going to move forward in any kind of timely manner, if we're going to be able to get any construction work done at the beginning of next year, or even at the beginning, the end of this year, this calendar year, it's going to be important to try to get some of the preliminary work done during the construction season this summer. And this only authorizes us and authorizes Arco Murray to go ahead with the preliminary topographic surveys and underground geological work to understand what the soils are and what kinds of structures might need to be put in place in order so further building could happen. It does reference the potential for a 4-story and a 6-story parking garage. We've been talking about a 4-story parking garage on this piece of property for several years. We haven't gone any detail about what might change, but we still have complete control over what that's going to be. The reason that there are figures in here is just to give the council a sense of how much we're going to be into this for. We entered into an agreement with Arco Murray to pay for these services. Arco Murray's in charge of the design. And at this point, I mean, that's kind of what we're buying if we want to go forward with a parking deck on this piece of property. The fundamental question could be, are we going to build anything here at all? Going ahead with this survey work and authorizing these expenses doesn't mean that we can't shelve that result for a couple of years if we need to. It's still going to be valid, but this is an attempt to get something done. The work is going to happen on part of the property and not all of this property. It has to do with what is left when the building comes down. I don't see how the reference to a potential six-story structure alters that at all. We still have to talk about what's going to get built there, and we still have plenty of time to do it. So I signed the report, and I support going ahead with this early investigation on this property.
Thank you, Alderman. Chairman Hipskin?
I also had similar concerns about this report, and I called Alderman Kennedy, and he walked me through the entire report and the process, exactly why it should go through. So I applaud the committee for doing what they're doing. I support it, and I want to thank the chairman for walking me through when I had my concerns too. I gave him a call, and he gave me the information I needed.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any problem moving forward with what is referenced as the preliminary due diligence. I think we are, or this report is putting the cart before the horse here in regards to the other piece. Alderman Pez's comments are valid. We haven't decided 4 stories, 6 stories. Why are we approving both at one time? We're not holding up the project in any way, shape, or form if we approve tonight the preliminary due diligence, the title survey, the topographic survey, et cetera, as Alderman Gutenkopf has referenced. We can move forward with that. I'm not sure exactly why, and if one of the committee members would like to explain on why both of these were pulled together at this time, because we need to do one step at a time. By moving forward tonight with the preliminary due diligence, the survey, et cetera, as has already been discussed, I think that's appropriate, and I don't have a problem with the dollar value. But this council has not approved what is going there. We have discussed it on many occasions, but I think that we should treat this in 2 different steps. It's appropriate, and I think it's the right thing to do. Therefore, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to remove any and all references of the design costs and proceedings from this report, and therefore only moving forward with the preliminary due diligence services.
Seconded by Alderman Pezza. Okay. So it's an amendment to the original motion with the removal. Any discussion? Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you. I just want to point out that nothing in this report is approving our expenditure for a 4-story or 6-story building. This simply references it as a point of information so that we know what potential percentage this is going to be. We know what the 4-story building is going to cost. So all this does is just give us some additional information so that we can see that this is a percentage of the overall design cost that is well in line with what typical construction costs are.
Your feeling?
Very good. Alderman Levin.
I just have a question. Alderman Bram, the way I read this is that we're being authorized for just that portion, just the preliminary due diligence and design costs. And is your motion trying, which is the $94,000, doesn't authorize anything else? Are you reading it differently, or how does your motion change that?
May I respond?
Sure. Alderman.
I read that last paragraph, preliminary due diligence, being the piece of the topographic survey, the title survey, et cetera, as one piece. I read the and design agreement being the approval of the cost from anywhere from $459,000 to $522,000 and change.
Alderman Levin, follow up?
Well, if the committee could clarify, because I just want to make sure there are 2 different things, and I was intending on voting in favor of the $94,000 item.
Chairman Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As it simply states in the beginning of first sentence of paragraph 3, this is $94,000, $650 that we're approving here tonight. It's a portion of the overall project. That project could be 4 stories, could be 6 stories, but we're going to spend the same $94,650 to do the preliminary engineering work, the soils testing, the civil engineering work, regardless of what we do. That's all what we're approving here. To Alderman Gutenkopf's point, those values in there related for design, whether it be 4 or 6 stories, are just a point of reference, and to put that references to the total project cost as it relates to the design part. So I think it is quite clear and stands on its own.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Mulliner.
Yeah, I fully support spending the $94,650. I understand that there might be some confusion. To me, if there was any way to simplify the confusion, I think it's a very simple way of doing it, and that is in the last paragraph, remove "and design agreement" in both locations. If you remove those two things, then there's no question about the $94,000. We all know that the whole point of this was the $94,000, but to me, that's the solution to the problem, because then nobody thinks that we're spending the $400,000 or the $300,000 extra. So if we just remove those two "and design agreement" in both spots in the last paragraph, it makes it very clear. I completely agree that it just says $94,000, but I think that just clears it up for everybody who has any questions.
Alderman Levin? I'm sorry.
I think personally the way to do it is to leave it the way it is and just put the dollar amount in of $94,500, because the word agreement's got to be there, because that's what we're going to enter into. So I think we're all in agreement ourselves, and if the concern is just the dollar amount, just add the dollar amount to the last line and we're done.
Very good. Alderman Pezza?
Thank you, Mayor. One concern, and Alderman Dunn said it, and I don't see it in here, and it probably should be. It was a not to exceed $94,650. This report does not say not to exceed, as far as I read a couple of times. So that's important. But basically, I can, 2 months from now, when this piece is finished, somebody's going to come back to us and say, oh, but we're going forward with this next step because you already approved it. This is how I read it. I've been on this council 3 years. I know how things work. It's going to come back to us that we already really approved it here, so, we're just going to go forward with it because it was there and we knew about it and we approved it here. Once again, one step at a time. We don't know what we're doing. 4, 6, 459, 522. We do know what we're doing with 94,650. That's all this report should reference, because for now, that should be all we are doing, and I understand now that is all we're doing. So why we're referencing these other numbers for like a pre-approval, that's the piece I don't agree with.
City Attorney Serena would like to interject something here.
Just for my own clarity, we are going to bring an agreement back to you in 2 weeks, an agreement that is going to spell out what's contained in here. And I did make a note, as you said, Alderman, that it should be a not to exceed, and I will include that. But if that helps at all, we will be bringing an agreement back for your consideration in 2 weeks, which can, in fact, I hope, bring some clarity to some of this.
Alderman Brown?
Thank you. And thank you to the city attorney. I'd like to know that it will be clarified in the agreement, but it seems like every time we hit that stage of the game, it's always too late to do an amendment or any changes. Alderman Levin's suggestion, as well as Alderman Mulliner, but I like Alderman Levin's suggestion of changing that last paragraph to include that dollar amount and that dollar amount only. I think maybe I went a little bit overboard in regards to striking anything in reference to the design services. I think it would be appropriate and the right thing to do to leave the rest of it in there for informational purposes. But I would like to agree, and if I need to amend my own amendment or motion to only include that dollar amount being not to exceed $94,650 in the last paragraph. Do we need a second?
If we look at this as a friendly, your amendment as a friendly modification, that we add that, I already made that note, and if the movement agrees, then that could stand as the amendment. We vote on the amendment, vote on the report, if that's agreeable to the council.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, you okay with that?
Yeah, so just to recap, we're just going to simply add the $94,650 into the
and say not to exceed, I think.
Not to exceed. Okay, I'm okay with that.
Very good, very good. Okay. I think we've got it worked through here. I'll just do a simple voice vote on the friendly amendment here. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. Ayes have it. We'll note that not to exceed dollar amount in the agreement and to the underlying motion. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for all in favor to say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Underlying motion carries as well. Very good. We'll move on to item W. It is a ordinance. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the ordinance, please.
It's ordinance MCO 2012, an ordinance to amend Article 4 entitled Rates and Charges of Chapter 7 entitled Water and Sewers of the Municipal Code of the City of Elmhurst, Illinois.
And at this time, I entertain a motion and a second to put this item on the floor, please. Let's see here. Oh, Finance. Chairman Hipskins, second by Vice Chairman York. Discussion?
I say we pass amendment, or the MCO as read.
Very good. Any other discussion? Alderman Pezza?
I pull this, just, I don't want to exhaust what I said 2 weeks ago. My mind has not changed, so that's why I pull it.
Very good. Anybody else for discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Morley. Wagner.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Pezza.
No.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
No.
Palumski.
Aye.
12 ayes, 2 nays. 12 ayes, 2 nays.
12 ayes and 2 nays. The ayes have it, and the ordinance passes. We move on to reports or recommendations. And first report is from me. I just wanted to give an update on the meeting that happened prior to today's meeting, which was the GRB meeting for the North TIF 4. That did in fact pass. Qualifications did pass from recommendation from that GRB meeting by a vote of 6-1. We will be working closely with the governmental bodies, including the school district and the park district, to come up with an agreement in the future as far as how we're going to work with revenue. And I think we've had excellent discussions with the notification from back last September that the intentions of our council was to look strongly at this and move forward. So this did pass 6-1, and again, Chairman Morley chaired that meeting, did an excellent job, and we will be working hard with the school district and the park district to come up with a win-win agreement on the finances, which we'll be working on over the next few weeks. So that's it from me. I know City Manager Grabowski has an update on our storms from Commonwealth Edison, and with that, City Manager Grabowski.
Thank you. First, I want to apologize that ComEd couldn't be here tonight. As the mayor said earlier, we talked early in the day about that, and obviously they're out in the field working to get everybody restored. Everybody knows that yesterday a storm came through DuPage County, essentially down the North Avenue corridor, and included 90 mile per hour reported winds, and it blew down countless number of trees and power lines throughout the city. It's estimated that 15,500 customers were out in the city, and as of about 5 o'clock today, almost 7,500 were restored, leaving about 8,100 out. City Hall has been out all day. We've been up on a generator. You can hear that humming in the background. Also, the library and Courts Plus were both closed. And I want to really compliment staff because a number of people came in yesterday and worked to get streets clear, to get trees taken down. We've been working with ComEd since Sunday afternoon to identify critical outages such as water and sewer facilities, public safety facilities, and a number of our nursing and elderly care facilities. In fact, some of those elderly residents needed to be relocated, which the fire department aided in. ComEd has had a rep at City Hall since this morning to help identify those critical areas. We've been working with her all day. She will be back tomorrow to make sure that we have those back up. Public Works has been clearing roadways since yesterday. Police and fire have been checking on the critical facilities, helping with traffic flow. The admin and clerical people today were answering phones and helping with concerns, reporting down trees to Public Works to make all that as smooth as possible. Also, a big thanks to Mike Hughes, who contacted Allied Waste early yesterday, and because of that, they've started pickup already on some of the smaller storm debris, which residents can move to the parkway. And that's another point I want to emphasize, that we would encourage people to move all storm debris to the parkway so that eventually we can get it. It may not be all this week. In fact, it may not be for the next 2 or 3 weeks, but we will get to it. Our crews will be picking up the larger pieces that are out, and Allied will be picking up the smaller debris as they move through the neighborhood, which means that when a truck moves down the street, it may not pick up everything as they go along. They're assigned to pick up different pieces, and that's the most efficient way to operate. So to be clear, Allied will work every day this week with the exception of Wednesday. They will work Saturday to make up for Wednesday. Our crews will work every day this week. We'll bring people in on Wednesday to make sure that this debris gets cleared. We don't want a chance that another storm comes through and causes more havoc than is out there already. Fire department has been out there also patrolling and advising on the use of portable generators. A number of people keep them too close to their house, so we would encourage them to follow the safety precautions that we've put out there. And lastly, ComEd has said that this will be a multi-day event for us. That's about the only estimate they have right now. I know that the 2nd and 3rd Ward took a particularly hard hit in this storm, although the power was out all over the city. But they are pulling in crews from other areas, from other states, to help out with this. Keep in mind, again, it was all through the county, from West Chicago through Elmhurst. Again, the city's working with them, hoping to push that timeline down. So anything we can do to move that along, we are. And that we've established daytime and overnight cooling centers. Daytime, people can come to City Hall, they can go to the police department, and we're happy to accommodate them as we did today. And DuPage County set up an overnight shelter at Benedictine University. So if anybody needs details on that, they can call City Hall. We're happy to give those out. But otherwise, I really want to compliment city crews. As always, they go to work and they work hard until everything is taken care of.
Thank you, City Manager Grabowski. Alderman Hipsky.
I'd also like to thank the city staff. I was getting texts early on. I know that the website was down. Facebook was getting updates. We were in lockstep of what was going on throughout the whole afternoon and into the evening, all the way into the very late evening, and then resumed once again early in the morning. So great job for city staff and our city manager for keeping them on their toes, and they did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 items that I'd like to report on, one of which is related to the storm. I think that for whatever reason, over the past 5 years, we're seeing a significant increase in these type of storms, especially here in Elmhurst. Sometimes it hits the south side or the center of town more, and sometimes the north side. I would like to make a request or a recommendation that after this storm is done and it's behind us, that the city do a lessons learned and look back at what we've done well in this storm and what we could do better in future storms. I think I know some areas that I have seen and had recommendations from some residents on what we as a city could improve on, and we all know that we are discussing the recommendations that ComEd could improve on as well. So I'd like to make that recommendation, and I'd also like to hear either today or next meeting where we are. Again, this brings to light on where we are with all these different task force committees that was generated from the storm, I think, a couple years ago now. So those are 2 things I'd like to take away from this storm, because I think we can always, no matter how well we do, I think we as a government body can always do a better job, albeit if it's cooling centers or transportation for seniors. I think there's opportunities to improve. The second item I'd like to actually discuss and touch on is the JRB, the proposed new TIF, or TIF 4 as some are calling it, JRB meeting, and where we are with the TIF. Alderman Pezza and myself made this referral. I want to make sure it's clear to the residents and all other government bodies that our initial referral was for the area north of North Avenue and north of North Avenue only. Nothing from south of North Avenue, be it the Hahn properties or anything else from there. I think it's appropriate to consider that and to keep that in mind as we move forward with that discussion. The other thing on the TIF is what I wanted to report on is actually my displeasure of the appointment to the JRB. And it's not in any reflection to the elected official who was appointed to the JRB committee, but it's just the appointment itself. The appointment was not someone from the 3rd or 2nd Ward where this proposed TIF is going to be. So the 2nd and 3rd Ward, who could be impacted by this TIF, has no representation on the JRB or part of any of those discussions other than informal discussions. I'm disappointed in that, and quite honestly, I'll take it to the point of, I think it was inappropriate not to appoint a representation from either the 2nd or 3rd Ward. As I already mentioned, myself and Alderman Pezza made the referral. I was never contacted, never discussed that would it be appropriate for myself or Alderman Polomsky or anyone from the 2nd Ward be part of the JRB discussions. Some have said to me, Mike, don't make a big deal about that because the JRB isn't the final approval, you're part of the city council. But I think it is something. It sends a message to the rest of the city on who is in the discussions from the start of this proposed TIF. So I wanted to emphasize that here. It's not that I was not wanting to be a part of that process. I was not asked or chosen to be a part of that process. So when residents continue to ask me on why I was not, it wasn't by my doing at all. The other thing is I want to make sure that any meetings that are discussed between the City of Elmhurst government body, city staff, or any of the other government bodies, that they are communicated to the rest of the city council. I think it's appropriate that everybody in the city council knows what type of discussions are being talked about in regards to this TIF. It's very important for us to continue our conversations with the other government bodies, especially the school district, because the school district is greatly impacted by any path we take with this TIF. The park district as well, but especially the school districts, since they get most of their revenue from property taxes as a whole. So that's it for my 2 reports. I think that from both of these items, we can learn our lesson from it and improve and make sure Elmhurst is a better community from that. But I wanted to make sure that the public and especially my residents in the 3rd Ward understand where things are at with both the TIF as well as how the city has handled the storm this time around and how we will continue to try to improve on any storms in the upcoming future.
Thank you, Alderman. Anybody else? Alderman Leader.
I wanted to make a remark about the storm. We live in a very fragile world, and we're always one step from the quick and the dead, all of us. And man is a very slender reed, and I'm only grateful that no one was injured and no one was killed in the storm, because it could have very easily happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Well put. Alderman Polomsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. About the North York TIF, I want to say I'm fully supportive of developing the area within the boundary that's been defined. And I do feel that the council has representation. I feel like as a member of DP&Z, I do have the benefit and the ability to discuss this often, and I'm glad to have that opportunity. And I would like the opportunity for our committee to discuss some possibilities with the other taxing bodies. So I'm hoping that we can have that on an agenda soon for the DP&Z committee. Thank you.
Absolutely. Very good. Anybody else? Alderman Dunn.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Getting back again to the storm, I also would like to thank city staff. Their vehicles are everywhere, going through the 2nd Ward. A lot of people out, both the fire department, public works. But I'd also like to recognize the residents. The residents came out immediately, started helping each other. They're really good at this drill. The 2nd Ward has neatly piled branches everywhere, and I was really impressed. Everyone was very level-headed and focused and quite helpful in my tour of the ward. So I just want to recognize the residents. I think they've weathered the storm very well. Thanks.
Very, very well said, and we do have great people in this town that step up for one another, and that's the bottom line. Anybody else? Okay. Now on to other business. Anybody with other business at this time? Hearing none, ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman Morley with a motion. Alderman Wagner with a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.